Hello, Ya Ali Madad, and welcome to the very first episode of the Ismaili intellectual tradition. My name is Navid, and I am absolutely delighted to be your host as we dive into the rich heritage of Ismaili Islam. So, this first episode is going to be a bit of a trailer, you could say. We'll just be talking a little bit about what this channel is for, what its purpose is, and what kind of content you can expect to see on the channel, as well as some other housekeeping stuff. So the first thing I want to talk about is, what do I mean exactly by the Ismaili intellectual tradition? It's a very loaded term. So on the one hand, of course, it refers to some of the obvious things like history, like culture, practices, as well as beliefs. But on the other hand, it also refers to things like cosmology, which would be the origin and structure of the universe, right? And also certain things such as rational theological proofs of core ideas or beliefs, such as the existence of God, the validity of prophethood, and demonstrating the imamate as well. And it also refers to exploring Ismaili perspectives on human life. So, for example, what is the meaning of human life? What's its purpose? What does it mean to be human? How do we journey through our life? What does it mean to live well? And also, how do we have a personal relationship with our faith and with the divine? So, in terms of the inspiration for this channel, there are a couple important comments and pieces of guidance that were given by Maulana Hazir Imam regarding the importance of projects such as these. And so the first one that comes to mind for me would be the Farman given in Atlanta during the Diamond Jubilee year on the 17th of March 2018. And in this Farman, the Imam basically asks the Jamaat if they remember who the Dais are. Are they familiar with the Ismaili Dais? And what they did historically and what their purpose was. And after that, he gives an important responsibility to the Jamaat, which is that he would like the Jamaat of this generation to all become Dais of the Imam. And this, I think, is an enormously important responsibility and definitely had a very great impact on me when I heard this Farman. And another important message, this one is a good bit older. This refers to a speech that was given by Hazir Imam to the first graduating class of the IIS. And this was in 1983 in London. And this one I'll quote for verbatim here. He says, "I would like to say how immensely happy I was to be able to give degrees, diplomas to the first graduates of the Institute of Ismaili Studies. Why is this significant, and what is the reason? The reason is simple. In Islam, we have inherited in much of the world a traditional concept of education. Our children must not be faced with the choice of traditional education or modern secular Western education. They must have the benefit and the privilege of both. And the program that the Institute is setting up has been aimed at enabling our young throughout the world to benefit from our traditional Islamic education, as well as a modern Western secular education, so that these young men and women in the future can grow up with a strong foundation." So the next thing that I want to discuss here is regarding source material. So this channel aims to be based on very, very sound sources, and to provide quality education on all the different aspects of Ismaili tradition. And so, for that reason, we will be paying special attention to things such as the farmans of the current Imam, Shakir Al Husseini Aga Khan IV. Of course, the farmans of Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah Aga Khan III, as well as any of their speeches. And further, of course, we have the works of the Ismaili Dais or missionaries, as well as wider Islamic thought. So any Islamic thought that is that, in a sense, has a good connection or affinity to this tradition. Looking at its academic studies as well, modern academic studies, and of course the Ginans as well. So just a bit of a disclaimer though, regarding the Farmans. So of course, like any Ismaili, I know very well that the Farmans, especially the text, the actual verbatim text of the Farmans is a protected copyrighted property of the Imam and is for the Murids, right? It is for the Murids' eyes only. And so for that reason, any references that are made to Farmans will be made in a particular way. And what I mean by that is that there will not be extended long quotations from Farmans, done verbatim. It's mostly going to be paraphrasing, discussing certain key words, maybe a certain sentence, here and there that, there are certain instances where maybe the wording of a certain sentence is important to be given directly. And so in those instances, I will make that quotation, but it's going to be very minimal. And of course, there will not be any accessing or any kind of links or PDFs available on the channel when it comes to Farmans. I will definitely have the references there for the Farman. So like whatever Farman I'm using, I will have the location, the date, the year, all of that. And so anybody who is an Ismaili and who has access to these Farmans, they will be able to, track that down, go into their local Jamaat Khanas or reach out to, another member of the Jamaat who may have access to Farmans, and you can, see the full Farman in its exact wording from there. So Farmans will feature and will be an important part of the channel. But they are not. But I'm going to be paying, very special care to follow the guidelines and the instructions about their proper use when it comes to, things like social media and other public channels and avenues. So next, I want to talk about what the general plan or direction is going to be for this channel. So the first topic that I'll be looking at is the relationship between reason and faith. So initially, this seems like a fairly simple topic because, I think most people agree that reason, our intellect, is important to the interpretation of faith and understanding our religion. But the thing is, what does that exactly mean? And what I'm trying to say here is that even though we know that people more or less agree that reason should be applied to faith, there's still a whole lot of disagreement on what exactly that is. Because why? Because we have different conclusions, right? Regardless of, everyone's using reasoning, everyone's rational to varying degrees. And yet at the same time, we know that, just this idea of, yes, we need to be rational with faith, doesn't mean that everyone is actually talking about the exact same thing when they say that, right? And so for this reason, I want to explore a little bit about the history of the use of reason as applied to Islam. Initially, we'll talk a little bit about how this trend manifests in Western civilization a little bit, just so that we have a bit of a model and some examples of some categories of ways in which reason is used. But then we're going to see, in a sense, how well that really maps onto Islam, and how we can use those models to understand to some extent what the different sort of methods have been. And from there, of course, we will try to understand, well, what does the Imam want from the Ismailis? What are we supposed to make of these different ways of applying reason? And what might be a good fit for our tradition? What would be the guidance that our Imam would want us to follow on what this exactly means? So from there, basically, we would then looking into cosmology. So we would be looking at basically the structure of creation, starting with God. So articulating what is God in the Ismaili tradition, and how are the different ways that people have tried to demonstrate and philosophically or rationally prove the existence of God, and looking at, in a sense, the different kinds of concepts that can come out of that. And then from there, we would move on to prophethood. So we would be talking about the Islamic revelation, demonstrating its inimitable, or the quality that it has, where it's being miraculous and not able to be naturally reproduced by an average human being in terms of its literary excellence. And then, of course, we'll be looking at the imamate as well, so demonstrating the validity of the office of the imamate in Islamic tradition, and then, of course, trying to look at different issues of succession crises, right? So different situations where there were disputes about who the rightful successor to a certain imam is, and in a sense, linking this all the way to our current Nizari Ismaili Imam, Shah Karim al-Husseini Aga Khan IV. So this basically concludes our very first episode. Like I said, this is just meant to be a little bit of an introduction to what the channel is going to be about. The next video will be the start of the actual content, and I hope you found some of what I said interesting and appealing. I hope that the content on this channel will be of service to Ismailis around the world, as well as other people who may be interested in the Ismaili tradition and understanding who the Ismailis are. And if you do think this is interesting or appealing, I hope you will like and subscribe, and also tell your friends and family about this channel, and ask them to follow along as we go on this journey together. So until then, thank you very much, and Ya Ali Madad.